Hello, KGC fans and listeners. Welcome back to today's show. Today, I am joined by one of the greatest artists you can find anywhere. And I think it's only very fitting that for his debut album that he comes to talk to the KGC show about it. And we're so honored that he's taking time out of his very busy schedule to be here with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the great Seth McKay. Seth, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you doing, man?
Doing too great to complain, man. Where are you calling us from?
So I am calling you from the Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee area, the actual home of country music. So,
Amen, buddy. And this is gonna make the it's gonna make this chat a whole lot more better. But how's the weather out there right now?
it's actually warmed up quite a bit. The past few weeks and stuff, especially the past month, we've had a lot of cold, like seriously cold weather, which was kind of weird because really through Christmas and stuff, it wasn't near as cold as what it has been. But the past few days, it's been like 64, 65 degrees and sunny, so it's been nice.
Woo! Sounds like my dream right there, man.
Oh yeah, man.
Hey man, can you talk to us a little bit about how you got started and talk to us a little bit about some of your inspirations as well?
Oh yeah, sure. So really, how I got started, I grew up in a very musical oriented family. Had a lot of musicians in our family. Had a lot of people that could sing in our family. Growing up, I spent a lot of time, you know, being around music, whether it was in church, a lot of times, and so I grew up on church music quite a bit. So I would like to think you hear a little bit of an inflection of that in my music as I put it out now. But you know, um, I got started very early on. My mom used to joke about how when I was a baby, I would run around in my diapers singing along with the songs that they were singing in church. So, I got started at a very early age. My first, I guess, foray into going out and playing places was actually when I was 15. My mom was in a gospel group, and I actually joined that same gospel group when I was 15. We went and traveled all over the place and had a lot of fun with it. We were a Southern gospel group. So we sang a lot of the old Gaither tunes, stuff like that. Um, so that was a pretty fun time. But then I got to a point where a couple things didn't work out. That group had disbanded, and I actually had two opportunities to go sing for professional Southern gospel groups. And I was a little young at the time, so things just didn't work out in my favor. And honestly, I probably could have been done a little better myself. But as you know, when you're young and a kid, you don't really sometimes put as much effort in as you should. Uh, and so, that was a learning experience for me, but I learned from it and got better from it. But then, I guess I auditioned for those two groups when I was 18 and 19. When I turned about 20, I decided that I always had a love for like classic rock, classic country. And so that was always a love of mine. So I ended up kind of gravitating back towards that because my parents growing up, they showed me a lot of different things, like showed me the Bon Jovis and the Van Halens and the Guns N' Roses. And then obviously they showed me the George Straits and, um, you know, things of that nature. So obviously once I got 20, turned about 20, I guess, is when I started getting into all that stuff. And eventually I got with my first rock band and I played with them for about 2 years. And we did a lot of cool stuff, posted some videos online, went out and played some shows, but didn't really play a whole lot at the time. And then I've just had different stepping stones along the way. And I feel like every time I've left, went from one band to the other, I've took a step up. So I'm really excited about that because um, it's a hard business, man, but it's a fun business too at the same time.
Amen. And I understand. that you guys are working on your guys' debut album. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So my band is Seth McKay and the Moonshine Rivals. We are a country rock band. We have a lot of blues, a lot of that classic rock sound, and a lot of the classic country as well, kind of all infused together into one thing. And I think we have a very unique sound. But yeah, we're working on a full length album right now that I'm pretty excited about. It's going to be about 8 songs, and yeah, I'm really excited about that. We got a bunch of the songs already written, and may throw one cover on there that's kind of obscure, just to kind of throw something like that in there, throw a curveball in there. But yeah, there's a song called "Stories of Old," which is already out on streaming platforms that you can find. I don't know if you've got to listen to it yet or not, but I'm very proud of that song. I think that's going to be a very standout song on the record. And then there's another song that we've been playing live that hasn't been released yet, but it's called Lorraine, and it's a love song. Um, and I think it's a really catchy tune. And already just playing it out and stuff, people are already singing along with us and stuff. So that's pretty cool. But I'm definitely excited about it. We're going in to record it here soon. But actually, our producer just went through a heart attack, so we're just kind of waiting for him to get back to where he gets back into everything and is healthy, because we want to make sure he's healthy and you know all that good stuff. But so I don't have an exact release date yet, but we should be going in here soon, probably in the next 2 or 3 months with him and getting that recorded, and hopefully by the end of this year we'll have a release date set.
Yeah, man, and I would love for you guys to come for you to come back on and talk to us about it when it's fully complete and done.
Definitely, definitely, would love to.
Yeah, man. But hey, you talked about your song Stories of Old. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that song came to be?
So it's actually a funny story. Stories of Old. I was driving in my car one night. I worked at Logan's Roadhouse at this time. This has been quite a few years ago that I wrote this song. I think I was 19 when I wrote this song. And I wrote the first half of it at 19. So I was driving down the road one night, coming home from work late. I was a server at Logan's Roadhouse. Um, Driving down the road, driving home, and all of a sudden, this melody and this lyric just popped up in my head, and I could not get it out of my head. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I got to pull over and write this down." So I'm in the middle of the road, and I pull over to the side, and I'm like, "I got to write this down." So I'm like fumbling around in my car for a piece of paper, write it down, somehow keep the melody in my head until I got home, and then recorded it to myself, so I would remember it, because there's a lot of times where I've had decent ideas and they pop up in my head and I don't have anything around me to like jot it down or record it at the time. And then by the time I do, I forget what it was. So that was the first half of the song that I wrote that day. Um, it kind of sat dormant for probably about 2 years. And then the first band I was in, we were talking about maybe doing some original material at the time. And so, uh, they were like, "Seth, do you have any songs that you would want to bring in and see if we could work them out?" And I said, "There is this one that I got started on, but I never finished it." And they were like, "Okay, well, maybe bring it in and we can all finish it together." So basically, what had happened is I went home that night and I was like, I guess it gave me kind of that push to finish the song. So I came home that night and finished the rest of the song. Then I was 21 years old, was in my first rock band, and so I was over the moon at that point. And when I wrote it at 19, I was in a little bit of a different headspace. I was kind of looking back on certain things and kind of not necessarily depressed, but just kind of disheartened about like where I told you about the two professional opportunities, and gospel didn't really go as planned. So I was, there was a few things that didn't go my way, and I was like, man, this kind of sucks. And then, part of that song was just about looking back on things. But then at 21, I was looking forward. So it had a really good contrast between the two parts of the song, the first half and then the second half. Because the first half was a kid that really didn't know what he was doing. And then the second half was a kid that still didn't quite know what he was doing, but knew that he was moving forward and he was on his way there. So it's definitely a cool song. It talks about young love. It talks about the good times you had, whether it's back in high school or just back in your younger days in general. Um, so I think a lot of people connect with it in a good way.
Yeah, and man, it's a wonderful song, and thank you for that song. I think that people as independent songwriters don't get enough credit for as much talent as they bring, and that song is one of my favorites, and I'm not lying to you. I promise you on everything. I love it's in one of my playlists. I can It's in my summertime playlist on my phone, and
Well, I appreciate that, man. That means the world to me.
I truly do follow everything you do, and I understand that you got to open for the Kentucky Headhunters.
Yes,
Can you
sir, I did.
can you talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like for you?
So basically, at the time, I was in a band called Slick Cadillac, and we were working with a promoter out of the area which we live in, the Tri Cities area, Bristol, Virginia, Kingsport, uh, Kingsport, Tennessee, all over the place around here in the Tri Cities. And he does stuff all over the Tri Cities as far as like booking bands and stuff like that. And so he had booked. Let's see, I think there was four of us on that bill. Yes, there was four of us on that bill. So it was another guy who played acoustic before us. Then it was my band at the time, Slick Cadillac, uh, Confederate Railroad, and the Kentucky Headhunters all on one bill. Um, and so that was a really fun time because that was, I think, my second big show I had done at that point. Um, and obviously, I love uh, Confederate Railroad growing up and the Kentucky Headhunters. I remember Walk Softly and then Confederate Railroad's Jesus and Mama, So I got there to, get ready for our sound check that day. And Danny Shirley from Confederate Railroad was up there doing his sound check, and I was sitting there watching him. And Confederate Confederate Railroad was a really bunch of cool guys. Um, Danny Shirley actually gave me a compliment on my voice, which was really cool. And he's the lead singer of Confederate Railroad. Then the Kentucky Headhunters, dude, they just walked in and like they just screamed awesome. You know what I mean? Like they walked in, they had their sunglasses on, the long hair, and they were just cool, man. Um, and they sounded great. I mean, even for as old as they are now, they were fantastic. And so was Confederate Railroad, man. They were on it. And it was a really fun show because, you know, getting to know those guys that have done it for all those years, and getting just to talk to them, even if it's just a little bit, it it makes you want to keep going. You know what I mean? And just to get there and witness what they do is that much better.
Hey, yeah, and I understand that you've gotten to work with great names like those Kentucky Headhunters and the Confederate Railroads, but I understand that you got to open a show for a newer artist named Chase Matthews. What was
Yes.
that like getting to open for a really cool guy? I love Chase.
So we played a show in Lebanon, Virginia, at a festival called Cedar Fest, which we are actually playing again this year. Um, and so Chase Matthew was actually the headliner for that show last year. Um, and so this was with Seth McKay and the Moonshine Rivals, by the way. And so we went in there last year, um, and honestly, I didn't exactly know who he was. I knew he had some hits on the charts at the time, but I didn't realize of what magnitude exactly. Um, and we went in there and we played first that night, and I didn't get to meet him, however, which I wish I could have. I walked by him once, and he kind of looked at me and nodded his head, but that was about all I got to talk to him. But he got up there and he put on a show, man. It was a lot of fun, and just that whole atmosphere that day was great. I mean, there was thousands upon thousands of people there. It was a really fun night, and I definitely cherish those memories. Getting to play with big stars like that when I can. It's a lot of fun.
So you have gotten to play for a bunch of great people like we've been talking about, but is there one that you kind of just had your jaw-dropping moment that you said, "Man, I get to open for this person"?
There's been a couple, um, uh, for two different reasons, really. The first one that I did that was a big deal was we opened. I was still in Slick Cadillac at the time, and we opened for Tom Kiefer from the band Cinderella from the '80s, L.A. Guns, and then Faster Pussycat, all in one night. This was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was a lot of fun, man, because I'd always, grew up. I loved Cinderella and, loved LA Guns, the Ballad of Jane, and, I just joined these guys and we decided to kind of revamp everything and change our name to a different name than what I joined the band as, just to kind of differentiate ourselves from the last band. And so I hadn't been with them more than a few months, I don't think. And they had already had this booked and they were like, "Hey, man, would you like to play on a bill with us? That we're going to be on a bill with Tom Kiefer and L.A. Guns." And I was like, yeah." And so I went in there. That was my first time opening for somebody like that. So I went in there a little nervous, and I don't tend to get too nervous anymore, um, unless it's something really huge. And that was definitely one of those where I got up on the stage and I was putting my stuff up there, and I look around and I'm like, "Holy crap, man, this is really happening." It's a pretty cool moment, especially when you're a young 22-year-old kid and you're like, "Holy crap, I'm really doing this." Um, I didn't get to meet Tom because Tom's one of my favorites from back then. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him that day. I, seen him a couple times, and he had been upstairs in the kind of green room area, but I never got to actually meet him personally. But I did make a lot of friends that day. Some of them are still on my Facebook. A bunch of the guys who worked in the back for like LA Guns and Tom Kiefer were really cool. Work behind the scenes and roadies and stuff like that. Um, got to meet a lot of those guys and made some relationships with those guys. So it was a lot of fun that day, just because all those guys were so nice. There wasn't one that was rude. Like, I know we played first, and when we got done with our set, I had a bunch of people walk up to me and say, "Man, you sounded great." And they were roadies back there, for LA Guns or Tom Kiefer. And I was like, "Well, that's cool." And even a couple of the band members came up to me and said, "You sounded great, man." So that makes you feel really good because I guess it makes you feel that you are headed in the right direction. So that was a big one for me. And then I got to open up for Quiet Riot, which was huge because I remember growing up playing Grand Theft Auto, and you'd always turn on V Rock, and one of the songs on there was "Come On, Feel the Noise" by Quiet Riot. And a little chubby, I don't know, 10, 11-year old sitting there playing that video game, rocking out to it. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, I would have never, in my wildest dreams, have dreamed that I would have been on a stage with them at 24 years old. You know, so that was really surreal. And then getting to meet Rudy Sarzo, who was the bass player for Ozzy all those years in the '80s. Um, Such a sweet guy, humble. He was a little shy, actually. You wouldn't think he would be, but he was. And I walked up to him and talked to him, and he was just so kind, so humble, and so gracious. And that was really cool to get to meet a guy like him that's done as much as he has.
You talked about being from Tennessee, the Tennessee area. Can
Hmm.
you talk to us a little bit about some of your band's inspirations for this new band since you said it's a country rock type of band?
Yeah, sure. So I have a lot of inspirations. One of them I would say, probably my biggest inspiration, would be Bon Jovi. Um, I love how they've always kind of crossed platforms. When they did "Who Says You Can't Go Home" with Jennifer Nettles, and that became like a huge hit, not only on just regular rock radio but country radio. Um, and they ended up after that releasing an entire, pretty much country influenced album. And I listened to that album and I was like, I want to do something kind of like that. Not exactly like that, of course, because you want to be different than even the people you look up to, because you have to differentiate yourself in order to be yourself. So I looked at that. I mean, there was, Jason Aldean's always been a big influence on me. I went and seen him in concert as a kid, and just that country rock rockabilly sound that he has, especially in the early days, was always something I looked up to, and I was like, I want to be like that. You know what I mean? So there's, God, there's so many, man. Um, I even look up to the Kentucky Headhunters. At our live shows, we do Walk Softly. But like I said, when we played with them that time, those guys are just freaking awesome, man. Great musicians. Um, there's so many different ones that I can name. The list goes on and on. I take a lot of heavy influence, like I said, from 80s rock. I like John Mellencamp. That's another one. Um, Even a little bit of what Bruce Springsteen does, because it's kind of got a country-ish twist to it. Um, so that's kind of what I try to go for in what we're doing. And I think not only does it kind of go lean towards that, but it also has its own thing, which is a good thing, because I try to be different. That's something I've always tried to do. I don't try to like copy anybody else or anything like that, because if you try to follow the trends and stuff like that, it usually just doesn't work out too well for people. It may work out in the short term, but long term, it doesn't typically work out.
What what was the best piece of advice you've ever been given in your career that you still
Mm,
hold true to yourself to this day?
that's a good question. I've had a lot of advice over the years. I think it's just kind of what I said. Be true to yourself. Don't follow any fads. Whatever the flavor of the month is, whatever. I mean, you look at kind of the pop era back in the '90s and stuff like that. People were always trying to follow it. They were trying to get the next best thing that sounds exactly the same as the other thing that they had. um, and typically, those people don't stand the test of time. And whether you stand the test of time or not as an artist, you got to do something that you love, that you feel in your heart. And that's the way I look at it, because if you can't feel the music, if you can't love what you're doing, then you're either A, not in the right business, or B, it's just not going to work. You got to love what you're doing, and you got to do what it is that you feel in your heart.
I could not have said it better myself. And I claim to be a host, but my guests have better and more words than I do.
I appreciate that, man.
Well, Seth, you are a great guy. What are your hopes and plans and aspirations for 2025?
Well, for 2025, I would definitely like to get to the point where I'm getting to new places that I haven't been before to play. Um, Obviously, like I play quite a bit, and we play quite a bit, especially around the area that I'm in. Um, but I would like to venture out more, get to some of these other cities that we may not be able to get to, other states. it would be kind of nice to, take a weekend trip. Been talking to a few different places, trying to get into Nashville a little more and stuff like that. Because I think that would be a lot of fun, and it would also help us get out there to different people. Um, so I think really it's just that everybody in my band, that we all stay healthy and whole, and that we can get out there and play to even more people than we did last year, and we get this album put out, and hopefully it's successful. Because obviously you don't put out an album not hoping it's successful. Um, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think we got some stand-up songs that we're going to put on it, and I think it's going to be a good record. So I'm
I
excited
don't
about it.
I don't think it's going to be a good record. I know it's going to be a good record.
Thank you.
And and what we'll do is when you get it all done, we'll input it into the show, and you can come, give a track by track review, and we'll
Okay.
just give you all the promotion that you need slash want, because great talent deserves it, and that's what you are, my friend.
Thank you,
Um,
my friend.
where can folks keep up with you, and where can they keep up, and if they want to follow you on social media and stuff like that?
So we do have a Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Seth McKay Music. That's the Seth McKay and the Moonshine Rivals page. You can find everything on there. I'm actually updating the events tonight because I've booked a lot of stuff in the past week or so. So you'll be able to find where we're playing next, all that on there. You'll be able to find some footage of us if you want to check out what we sound like live. Um, I got plenty of that on there. And then, yeah, you can follow us on there and pretty much know exactly where we're going next, what we're doing. I'll keep everybody updated on the record. Because, like I said, pretty much the writing portion of it is done. It's just the point of, our, of him getting healthy so we can go in and record it with him.
Two final questions I'm gonna ask you before we start our rapid fire to close out the great show. Number one, what what song for you changed your life?
Oh, Lord. That's a really good question. There's been so many, but I have to say one of my favorite songs of all time that really just hit me right here. That was just a good song. It doesn't necessarily mean it just like tugged on my heartstrings or anything like that. Was "Wanted Dead or Alive" by Bon Jovi. I always thought that was just the coolest song. You got Richie Sambora in the beginning doing the walk down, on the guitar, and then if you watch the music video, it's even cooler. But that song is kind of my anthem. We play it at every show that we play. And it's just one of those songs that I've always loved for years and years and years, and it's never got old to me.
It's the endless song for you, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
sir.
and before we get into this, I want one more serious question, then we'll close out with a little bit of fun. How about that?
Okay. Sounds good to me.
How does your faith affect your music and everything that you do with your growing up in
Mm-hmm.
church singing background that you mentioned at the beginning of the show? How does that still affect your music and what you're doing today?
Um, I think it affects it a lot, actually. Before every show, I pray with the guys, uh, you know, and I just pray to the Lord that, we have a great show. We do our absolute best that we possibly can, that the people enjoy it, and that we're a light and a beacon for Him, you know, because even if you're playing in a bar, you can still be a source of light, in my opinion. Um, I've always, um, I've always been very much into my faith. That's something that I'm very proud of. That's something that I obviously everybody fails sometimes, and we're nobody's perfect. But that is definitely something that I try to keep uh, closely vested in my heart, and I think it does come through in my music because I try to think of how to say it. I try to bring that in my music in a way to where you see that light even through all the notes, all the lyrics, you know. And sometimes, it's just sometimes my lyrics are very what would you say? Um, Kind of spiritual in a way that I've noticed, and I absolutely love that about my music. And I'm a very big believer in Jesus Christ. He is my Lord and Savior, and I'm happy to say that. But yeah, I think it definitely comes through in my music.
It shows. And as a listener, it definitely shows because I just, like I said, I listen to your music and that's one of the first things I hear is I hear those Southern gospel roots in your voice and it shows in that music you're doing. So I just wanted to say good job and congratulations on all the success. And you want to
Thank you.
do a little rapid fire question?
Absolutely.
Who doesn't love a good one? What's your favorite what's your favorite type of music?
My favorite type of music, I would have to say it's kind of a mix between classic rock and classic country.
I know we spent the whole show talking about that, but still not asking. What's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh Lord. Um, let's see. I think probably one of my favorite movies is Talladega Nights.
I just watched that last night.
Did you really?
Yeah, one of the greatest movies to ever be made.
Oh my gosh, John C. Riley and Will Ferrell, man, they were like the perfect combination.
The things I would do to make another one, have them make another one.
Oh, I know, right? I seen a thing that on Facebook the other day that turned out to be fake, but I got really excited because it was like Talladega Nights 2, and I went, "What?" And then come to find out it was fake, and I got pretty mad.
Destroyed your day, huh?
It destroyed my day, man.
What's your favorite book?
Favorite book? Um, I tell you what, I read Sammy Hagar's book, his autobiography called Red. And if you haven't read that, I definitely encourage you to read it. It's a really good book. He talks, about his life up to the probably about the mid 2000s is when it was based in. I think that's when he wrote it. Was probably about 2012 or something like that. Um, but it talks about his life and how he got into music, and it's a really good read. So I would definitely check it out.
Amen. And last question, but definitely not least. Will you come back on the show when everything's done and promote it?
Absolutely, I've enjoyed this, man.
Me too. And this is one, like I said, I prayed right before I did this and said, Lord, let this be the most fun interview I've ever done. And it has. And so I'm thankful that you reached out and wanted to do an interview with me. And I will definitely be looking forward to that project that you'll be working on, as well as everybody that's watching this shoot as well. Go follow him on Facebook. And also, we can't wait to get him back on here to talk about all of his wonderful upcoming music. Seth, thank you again for joining us on the show. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing what you're going to accomplish in 2025.
Thank you very much, Caden.
Well, thank you so much for watching the KGC show. And don't forget to come back to another great episode of whoever the heck I decide to bring on this next time. We love you, love one another, and remember, love always wins. And give it up for one of my favorite people to ever come on this podcast, Seth McKay. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you very much, sir.